Hello, this is Cheryl Gallant, your Conservative Member of Parliament for the election-ready riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. Firearms owners knew something was coming. First there was C-68 with the long gun registry. Then it was the handgun ban. Then it was the confiscation of guns Trudeau says look scary. Finally, they put hunting rifles on the list. This was always more than about simply the government taking away legally acquired guns owned by law-abiding citizens. It was about getting Canadians used to giving up things this government says aren't good for us. They've banned salt on French fries and banned sugary drinks in schools. This NDP Liberal government has even gotten away with banning so-called single-use grocery bags. Now, instead of carrying our groceries home in thin film plastic bags and lining our wastebaskets with them, we have to fork out money for thicker plastic bags just to line our wastebaskets at 10 times the cost. More pollution, higher cost. And we could go on and on with the bans on everything from plastic forks and knives to books and movies, guest speakers, and other information sources that don't match this socialist government's narrative. Do you know what they're banning now? Normal vehicles. Cars and trucks with internal combustion engines. New models of your current vehicle may not be available for 2 years, if ever. Even if you break down and try to buy a hybrid, they're also at least 2 years in the making. Justin Trudeau and his NDP Liberal government want you to drive an electric vehicle or nothing. Economists are saying the whole idea of flipping the auto industry to EVs has been a colossal flop. Provincial politicians are rethinking the value for taxpayers for battery plant investments that won't break even after 20 years. That's if the plants aren't obsolete before then. Most people where I live don't want an EV because it gets colder than the minimum temperature an EV engine will function at. Some people would need to rewire their homes because it takes more electricity to charge an EV than it takes to run all the heating and appliances in an average home. Homeowners will have to decide if they're going to have the furnace and freezers going or charge the car. Auto manufacturer plants are retooling anyhow. Billions of taxpayer dollars are being spent by both federal and provincial governments to build battery plants. The battery plants need the power that generators don't have the capacity to charge and the electricity grid can't handle. Residents of Arnpire received notices in the mail last week advising of a giant lithium storage battery going up just outside of town. It didn't say which municipal government's fire department was going to be responsible for the property. A lithium battery fire is impossible to fight. Water makes it worse, and foam doesn't work. It has to burn itself out. It's time to cancel Trudeau's ban on regular cars and trucks. After 8 years, Canadians are coming to realize we need a government that uses common sense instead of blindly taking orders from international organizations. It's time a new government is put in place for the common people and for our common home. Speaking of flops, the NDP Liberal government's flip and flop over the oil furnace fiasco in Atlantic Canada provides a clue on another ban that lies ahead: oil furnaces. We're pleased the pause on carbon tax for heating oil was extended to all Canada, but everyone else who heats with fuel wants a break too. However, the announcement that Atlantic Canadians will have their oil furnaces replaced with heat pumps for free is a shameless bribe for votes. Trudeau having taxpayers pay for the replacement of oil furnaces is like the so-called gun buyback debacle. The Prime Minister offers a token payment for what he wants banned. He gives preferential treatment where it's politically expedient to do so. A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. That's what Trudeau himself virtue signaled. All Canadians should have the carbon tax removed from their heating bills, especially farmers. My colleague, Ben Lobb, MP for Huron-Bruce, has moved a bill through the House of Commons to cancel the carbon tax for farmers. But now, Trudeau's hand-picked far-left senators have gutted the bill. Farmers need to dry their grain and keep livestock from freezing. The cost of drying grain is already astronomical. That grain goes into making our food. It's the reason pasta, flour, and other grain-based products have tripled in price. Over the last 3 years, the carbon tax has tripled. Next year, it will quadruple. On Monday, the House of Commons voted on a motion to cancel the carbon tax entirely on all heating fuel for all Canadians. Conservatives unanimously voted in favor. This time, the Bloc Québécois propped up the Liberals. Time will tell how that party was bought off. By the way, the heat pumps won't be free in Atlantic Canada. They only work efficiently until about 4 degrees Celsius. After that, they consume more energy to do their jobs. So a backup heating system is needed. Electric furnaces are usually sold with heat pumps to back them up when the heat pump can't do the job. Electric furnaces draw about 60 amps at the low end. Older homes only have a 100 amp service. Switching out oil service for a heat pump often means a home's electrical service needs to be upgraded to 200 amps. That's going to need to be done anyhow if you're forced to plug in your car at home. I don't know if Trudeau's shameless bribe covers all those costs. When several homes in a neighborhood all get upgraded, older transformers blow up when it's time to cook supper and everyone turns on their stoves. New transmission lines are also needed for the higher capacity transformers that will need to be installed. With the NDP Liberals, nothing is free. They've got to go. The NDP Liberal government loves databases. It wants to know everything about you so it can control you. It can monitor your social media or acquire the analytics, your likes, your dislikes, your political preferences. Your information can be bought and paid for from companies you've unwittingly given permission to do so. The government can also harvest information it has on you, or it can simply demand it of you. Case in point, the underused housing tax. I'll bet there are Canadians who have never even heard of this, but may owe the government thousands of dollars for not knowing about it. To mollify their highly concentrated voting bases in Vancouver and Toronto, Trudeau needed to make it look like he was doing something to contain the housing prices. Being the racist he is, he blamed people from other countries for buying up real estate. So he slapped a tax on housing units owned by foreigners. It's called the underused housing tax. Instead of going after people using residential properties for money laundering, he chose to exploit Canadians instead. He's made it mandatory for Canadians to register residential properties other than their primary homes, for some Canadians. For some people, it means their cottages. I don't know about hunt camps. It depends on how they are owned. The details on who is or is not required to register their residential properties is available online. You may need your accountant to help you out to see if your property is subject to the registration. The punishment for falling into the must register category but failing to do so is a $5,000 fine per unit. A tax was established in the wake of the government's wild, overly restrictive response to COVID. People fled the cities and bought up a lot of the available homes in rural Canada, also driving up the price of housing. The registration was supposed to happen last year, but since so few people even knew about it, the deadline was extended. The deadline was extended recently again to April of 2024. Some accountants won't even touch these annual returns because the guidelines are nebulous. It's a tax return separate from your income tax return. Cottage industry has sprung up to offer its services for thousands of dollars in return. It's a matter of time to see if they'll still be around once the audits get done years later. First, the Liberals demanded you list your primary residence on your tax return. Now, the Liberals demand you declare any other residence you own. The Liberals have used the CRA to create a massive home registry. The Prime Minister's not worth the cost to your privacy. You know, this Prime Minister just isn't worth the cost. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant.